Okay, well, we are here with Luke and Soka Smith and their children, Hannah and Asa, in Cambodia. It is 8 p.m. our time, 8 a.m. So as we were putting our children to bed just now, you guys are getting your kiddos up. Hi, Hannah and Asa. Welcome.
Let me say hi.
And
Hello,
we saw
everyone.
you guys. What was it? About a year ago? About a year ago this time, you guys were here with us.
Yeah, maybe a couple years ago, I think.
Okay. All right. Time flies. But nevertheless, glad to have you guys. Glad to see your faces. Glad to talk to you. We should do this more often, and perhaps we will going forward as a result of this new era in communication. But thank you. And Luke, most of our folks know this, but if you would just start by just reminding us of your call, how long you've been there, the 5-second love story of you and Soka, and set up those things, and then we'll talk a little bit about what life is like these days.
Okay, great. Thank you. Yeah, I came to Cambodia in October of 2009, so past the 10-year mark in 2019 of being here. So I had started going to St. Peter's a couple years before that. I was a seminary student at Dallas Theological Seminary and got interested in Reformed theology, and New St. Peter's was the first Reformed church that I started going to. And yeah, they became my sending church. I was ordained through the North Texas Presbytery, so came here in 2009. The church that the Mission to the World team was working with was the church that Soka, my wife, was going to. So we met initially when I came to the field, and then after being on the field for a couple years, we got married in 2011. And then we've been working in this village in the southern part of Cambodia, 60 miles south of Phnom Penh, ever since then.
Yeah, as for me, I was actually taken care of by my grandmother since I was a baby. My grandmother and my auntie, who was my mom's younger sister. And then at the age of 13, my grandmother got so sick, and my auntie had to go to a college to study Khmer literature. So I ended up living in a Christian orphanage. And that was where I came to know the Lord. And I didn't know that He had a plan for me after I had graduated from college. I got to work in that college for 1 year, and then I went back to serve in the orphanage where I was raised. And my heart was always that I wanted to serve the Lord, and it was one of my prayers that if you, like when I first came to the Lord, I said, if you were real and if you would help me, I would serve you for the rest of my life. And it was always there in my heart even after I had graduated. So that's why I was so passionate to quit my job at the college and to go back and serve in the orphanage. And I was there, I was too passionate, and I was with them for the next 4 years. And I felt like I got burned out. And I thought it was time to move out of the orphanage life completely. And the Lord was with me, and I was always, it was always my desire to serve Him. As I had promised, and partly at the time I wanted to do so. So after I had resigned from the orphanage as the assistant administrator, I served as a part-time translator at Phnom Penh Bible School while working as a Khmer language tutor to many missionaries. And then and also as a teacher at a Christian elementary school. And while I was working in Phnom Penh, I was also looking for a church to attend. And that's where I met Luke, who came in as a missionary on the Mission to the World team, to Cambodia. And we became friends. And yeah, and it was still my dream that maybe the Lord would use me, would send me somewhere to serve Him as a missionary, either in my own country or in other country. And also my desire to, like, I love village life. And so when he told me about moving to live in a village, I said, oh, that was something that was on my heart. And so now I'm here, and I feel that it is where I'm supposed to be. And yeah, and I love being here in the village, love telling people about Jesus, love having fellowship with our students who have heard the gospel through our church and through our family. So I've been blessed, and the Lord has blessed many others through us, through me, and through our family in the village.
Wow, I love hearing you talk about your story, Soka. Just a few times that I've had the chance to. So thank you. And you guys have in the background there Hannah and Asa. Remind us. So last time I saw them, gosh, okay, I can't remember if it's been a year or two ago, but how old are they now, and what's going on in their world?
So Asa will be turning 4 on May 29th, and Hannah will turn 8 July 28th of this year. So Asa is typical, almost 4-year-old, very, very, very busy. Some of the things that are unique that he's able to do in Cambodia, especially here in the village, he loves to go hunting for field crabs. So these are crabs out in the rice field. So there's a little burrow that you can see on the top. So a couple of the girls who help babysit him, they take him out in the field, and
almost every day.
Yeah, almost every day. And he likes to watch them dig up the crabs.
And he gets like a bucket of crabs to die every day.
we don't eat them. They're kind of, they can easily be poisonous, so we don't eat them. But anyway, he likes to go crab hunting. And of course, he is loving this time right now. He doesn't know anything about COVID-19 other than we have a lot more time to spend with him, and Hannah is home from school every day. So he is really, really enjoying this time, I think.
Yeah, and we have three of our young students who have been like spending time with us, coming to our house and playing with them. They are like our little nannies. Oh. So yeah, they enjoy being at home and playing with them.
As far as Hannah is actually in 3rd grade in the Khmer Public School. So it's about maybe a 10-minute walk from our house. So usually Hannah would be going to school, and she goes to school from 7 a.m. to 11 a.m. 6 days a week. But of course, school stopped about a month and a half ago with COVID-19, so she's not going to school right now. So Hannah's doing well. I'm using this time to help her catch up in her English, homeschooling her in English during this time. So we're catching up on schooling her in English. And then she's enjoyed being home. She also has a lot of friends at my public school, so she misses that. Every year, she started in 1st grade, and that was a challenging year. 2nd grade, she started doing a lot better. Her teacher was a lot better. And then this year in 3rd grade, she's really taken off. She has good friends there. And the last semester, right before all of this started to hit with COVID-19, she got 4th in her class. So she's really, really enjoying being in school here and acclimated quite well in that regard.
So I had one quick follow-up question then. Okay, you mentioned that you love village life. Can you define some of the qualities of village life and contrasted with life in the city that you really enjoy about it?
When I first moved to live in the village, or from my experience being in a village since even before we were married, I was working as also an interpreter or a translator for other missionaries. So I travel with them to villages as well. So I feel that, when I look at the landscapes, they are like God's paintings. They are all there, and how they reveal His power, His creativity. That's like I'm always reminded of how powerful, how creative, how wise He is. That's how I enjoy the sceneries in the village, and I like to, my kids are at this age and they like to run around in the fields, and we have a few rice fields too. I just love being one of the farmers in the village too. Like, we are not called to be a farmer, like to be farmers in the village, but I'm part of the community and something that I'm learning, and I enjoy being one of them. So I've started learning to plant rice, and I ask the villagers to tell me like when it's time to plow the land, when it's time to sow, and how to take care of the rice and the green beans, things like that. And I love, like, God has given me a heart, because I've been loved, and I want to share that love. And that's also how I respond to God's love. So I love people in the village, even though they have been damaged by sin. And, when I look at their lives, it's really sad. Not that I'm not sad about my life being in this sinful world, fallen world, but there's hope that I have, and how I want to share with them, and how I want to tell them about this God who loves them. So that's part of my everyday life before COVID-19. Even during this era of COVID-19, we still get to spend time with our students. I mean, like, of course, we have to stay safe. But after 2 weeks of being confined to our house, and we try not to meet with any of our students, and things didn't seem to be that bad after 2 weeks. Nobody got sick, and it seems like it was safe. We we've heard of COVID-19 in Cambodia, and it wasn't serious. Nobody died yet. That's what we have been told. But we also want to see that with our own eyes. And when we have not seen it, or when we have not seen people with any symptoms in the village, once again we feel the freedom to move out. And a lot of people are like going to the village as usual, but some people are still a bit scared after these 4 weeks of 4 or 5 weeks after we've heard of COVID-19. So a lot of students, some of our students have returned home from the city. They also want to hang out with us because they stopped going to school, right? School are closed, and when they're in the village, they are bored. And we have another house built next to our house. It's for mission teams, and they come and they hang out there, and we try to meet with them. Sometimes they enjoy eating with us, so I end up cooking for them almost like every day now too. A few of them at a time, and sometimes a group of 10 or 15 students. Yeah. So that's how the village life is like for me in the village. And before after we've heard of COVID-19, and it was very close to the Khmer New Year, I wanted to, usually I would get some presents for the local authorities to show our heart of gratitude for their protection. They keeping us safe in the village. That's what I usually do for the local authorities before the Khmer New Year. Like, they are Khmer New Year gifts, but this year was different. I ended up packing a small plastic bag with necessary ingredients that I think the villagers love, because they have plenty of rice to eat. But I got them fish sauce, soy sauce, seasoning salt, and sugar and salt, white salt, and a few other things. So we have been distributing those gifts to our students' parents, as well as families of villagers who are like close to us, and who are Hannah's parents, Hannah parents' friends. Yeah, so
That's great.
yeah, it's an act of showing that we care for them and how we love them, and because of God who loves us.
That's cool. That's great to hear. It's everyone's kind of figuring out how to show compassion and love in this new season. So that's really encouraging. Okay, so Soka, you are welcome to stay with us as long as you want. I understand you may have to go wrangle some little ones. That's okay. So if you have to duck out, that's okay. But Luke, maybe you could just take us through what this has looked like for your country and your village over the last couple of months as COVID-19 has unfolded.
Yeah, sure. Thanks. So yeah, we kept on seeing the news in the world and watching things in the U.S. closely. I remember especially when the NBA season shut down in the United States, and we had a team meeting in Phnom Penh, and we were talking about, I wonder if short-term teams will still come this year, all of that sort of thing. And then that day of our team meeting, the NBA had just shut down. So we're like, oh, things are getting really serious now. We don't know what will look like for this summer as far as short-term teams and such. And then in the days following, things started to hit in Cambodia as far as restrictions and stuff. So on Saturday, March 14th, Cambodia shut down issuing tourist visas to the United States, as well as a few other countries as well. And the way that directly affected us is John Lee, who has finished support raising with Mission to the World to come long-term to join our team and actually to join us specifically in the village, was not able to come. And he was supposed to come at the end of March. So he was, when I saw the news break that they were not issuing visas anymore, I gave John a call, who was still in the US, obviously, and he was actually at a going away party with his friends. So that has obviously been delayed. He's still in the US. He's already come, just whenever things start to return to normal and people are able to travel from the US again, they'll be able to join us. So that was one way that it kind of directly affected us, I guess. And then in the days that followed, more things started to happen. That Sunday, March 15th, the Cambodian government shut down public schools in Siem Reap and Phnom Penh, which are the two major cities here. And then that following day, on Monday, probably about 10 or 11 a.m., they shut down all the public schools and private schools in Cambodia, as well as any like teaching centers. So that would include what we do with teaching English as a second language here. So they just issued the announcement mainly through social media and on TV and stuff. So Hannah and the rest of the students who come and study English with here, they didn't really get much closure because a lot of them came home and opened Facebook or turned on the news and realized, oh, school's canceled now because their teachers didn't tell them in the morning. Their teachers didn't know. So for Hannah, we told her, and I think she was a bit confused by it. We actually had to call her teacher and have her teacher tell her, because she didn't want to believe us that she wasn't going to school the next day. And then that following Tuesday, I think it would have been March 17th, if I remember right, the Cambodian government shut down large religious services. Part of that was because a lot of the COVID-19 cases in Cambodia had come from Cambodian Muslims who had attended a big conference in Malaysia. They were returning, and that was part of the spread of it. So one of the ways that it's kind of looked in Cambodia is it's been mainly foreigners, European foreigners, most of the cases of COVID-19. So often in the way that the way it's kind of put forth in Cambodia is it's something that's mainly come from European tourists. So that was one of the reasons, stop European tourists and American tourists as well. And then obviously it spread to a few Cambodians as well. So right now, just like in the United States, anywhere else in the world, the testing can be a bit limited, and who to test and all of that sort of thing. We're going through all of that as well. So there's been 122 cases in Cambodia right now, but I just looked this morning. So today's the 13th day that they've had no new cases. And of those 122 cases, 117 of those people have already been released, so they're healthy and have been released. So they only have 5 active cases right now. Of course, then the question is, what's really going on? And the answer is we don't really quite know. And then when will things start to return to normal? We don't really know either. The way Cambodia has put on restrictions has looked a little different than in the United States and that sort of thing. I think they kept factories and things like that open the whole time because that's the main economy of Cambodia. So they didn't want to shut that down. So as far as back to here locally, how it affected us is on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, we have an English outreach. We teach the Bible in Khmer, the language of Cambodia, for the first 30 minutes of class. Then we teach English for the appropriate level that they're at. We have 3 different groups of students studying with us. They go to Khmer Public School either during their lunch break or when they get out of school for the afternoon. They come and study with us. So we have about 70 students who usually come and study with us. Because of the restrictions, all of that had to be shut down. Because of the large religious services, we can no longer meet as a church on Sunday. So, how do we try to regroup and do ministry now? We tried to use Zoom. A lot of our students do have smartphones, but I had to teach them how to use Zoom. And then we found is maybe only about 25% effective. The main reason is now that all the students are home, a lot of them are on the cell phone network. So we don't have internet. Everyone's just using cell phone data. They're on the network. So the network has become very, very slow. It's okay in the morning. That's why I wanted to talk to you all in the morning here. People are out doing field work and stuff, but probably from about 11 a.m. on as they come in from the fields and they're home during the hottest part of the day. And then in the afternoon, especially during the evening, it slows down. It's hardly usable at that point. So as we've tried Zoom meetings and stuff, I could say it's maybe only 25% effective. Either their phones are too old, the students really don't know how to use it, or just their internet is too slow for it to actually be usable. So we do have a fair amount of flexibility in the restrictions as far as the current state. So we're able to meet in small groups, like Soka had mentioned. So we divided the older students up into groups of about 10, and we meet with them once a week. Of course, the younger students, we have a fairly large Sunday school program for children who are in grade school. Usually about 40 to 50 students would come on a normal Sunday morning. We're not able to meet with them at all during this time. And of course, we're really looking forward to when things can start to go back to normal, as I'm sure you are too. We're not quite for sure when that will be, obviously. But yeah, we're looking forward to that. I think some of the other ways that we are seeing the effects of this. Cambodia is an economy that relies mainly on tourism. So all of that is basically shut down right now. We have a pastoral intern who's been working with us. He lives in Kampot City, which is a little over an hour away from us. So he has a tuk-tuk. So this is like the motorcycle pulled little cart thing where you would give people rides. So he is bought it about 6 months ago and was making money giving tourist rides in Kampot City. And then all of this hit, and for the past month there haven't been any tourists for him to give rides to. So his livelihood is kind of on hold for right now during this time. And another example, one of our college students from our church that we help. So his parents, they live in a village by a market. And one of the ways they make their living is they sell these kind of like Cambodian sandwiches and some sugarcane juice just to people driving down the road. During this time, as people have become more fearful, no one wants to stop and buy anything anymore. And then he also has an older sister who works at a factory in Phnom Penh. She's the main source of income for the whole family. It's quite typical in Cambodia for one of the children, especially one of the older children, to make money and then help support the parents while they're older. So his older sister has also been laid off for 2 months. The factory isn't closed, but they're not able to get the supplies they need from overseas to make the products they need during this time. So all that's put on hold. So they're trying to regroup and figure out, how do we make a living during this time. So it's interesting to observe how, even as things have been shut down in the US, how that affects factories in Cambodia, which have stayed open, but now they don't have enough orders. So they're starting to lay people off, or they can't get the supplies they need, that sort of thing. So yeah, that's some of the ways that it's look like here in Cambodia.
So Luke, that's great information, and I'm curious in terms of the basic certain patterns of village life. I know Soka addressed this to some degree. So you mentioned that some livelihoods being pretty dramatically impacted, and that can sort of have a chain reaction since there's an interdependence between generations for the income, as you were highlighting. In terms of the just the cultural patterns of the village, Soka mentioned, meeting and having the meal that she was making with people. Have you guys maintained any aspects of that? Do you feel really well because you're a little more isolated from the city, or has the impact was it pretty dramatic at first?
Yeah, at first, I think there was a lot of fear, and of course we wanted to take appropriate and wise precautions as well. So I think back in the middle of March, once everything shut down, a lot of Cambodian villagers were mainly staying at home. There was a lot of fear, a lot of rumors. Of course, anytime anyone got sick in the village, they're like, "Oh, I think that person has it." And especially anyone who had been working in the tourism industry, and they're like, "Oh, that person gets rides the European tourist or Chinese tourist," something like that. So there's a lot of rumors and a lot of fear in that way in the first couple of weeks. And then, in the village, I think it's a lot harder to completely shelter in or socially distance like people are able to do somewhere like the United States. You have extended families living right close together. We have a refrigerator, and there's maybe like 2 or 3 other refrigerators in the whole village. No one else has a refrigerator. So they buy fresh meat and vegetables every day. So you have sellers come around and buy stuff, or you have to go to the market yourself. So those sort of things, Cambodians are just very communal and social in general. So I think it's a little hard for them to completely adapt in the way that other countries are able to. So I think for us, we've tried to take precautions, and then we've also tried to kind of live in accordance with the way we see the rest of the community live, if that makes sense. I guess time will
absolutely
know if that's the best approach or not, but that's
no,
what we tried.
I think that makes total sense. I mean, yeah, and it is. I think what you just gave is an example of the refrigerator. That's the kind of the detail that's just known, and everyone has a pattern of living because they don't have a refrigerator. But there's a lot of ripple effects from that in terms of what's even possible if you're having to daily source food, for instance.
Yeah,
that's great insight. Good. Hey, I was curious before we started this call. I pinged you to see if you'd have any thoughts on this, and I'll ask now in case you do. Just you've kind of gone over the abnormal parts of what it's been like here, but in terms of all those years prior to that in the ministry you've been running, when you're back home, I think you said it was a couple of years ago we last had you at our church, for instance, and you're talking to folks. Is there some normal assumption that's no longer surprising that you hear sort of reflected from people back to you that's just not the way it really is? It's just like people assume, oh my goodness, it must be so hard, such and such, and it's not that hard. You've adapted, and it is what it is. What do you think?
Things have changed a lot over the course of the 10 plus years I've been here. So it would probably surprise a lot of people that we can have a Zoom call like this,
I
and the
think
quality
so.
be pretty good, hopefully. That's not something we would have done years ago. You know, when we first moved to the village, we didn't have electricity. I used this little device that I plugged into the USB port on my computer that had a SIM card in it, and it was pretty much dial up speed. So Gmail and stuff I had to look at in HTML format and stuff when I did all that. So those things have drastically changed. So yeah, I can even watch a college football game or something, which I enjoy doing here in the village in Cambodia. That is kind of odd, maybe a bit surprising for some people. Of course, it's inconvenient when the football game starts at like 2:30 p.m. or something, so that doesn't work too well. So
The only people who are going to understand that are those who, like, for instance, in the U.S. Premier League, right? they're the guys who are always like, oh, the game starts at 3 a.m.
yes.
So I get that.
But yeah, we have electricity. You know, a lot of the things we have. I guess the adjustment or kind of the annoyance of it is we have electricity, but a lot of times we have blackouts. When do those blackouts occur? Those blackouts occur when it's the hottest, because that's when people are using the most electricity. So, you know, the day's really hot and you can almost time it. Once it becomes unbearable, the electricity goes off because everyone's using too much. And then once the electricity goes off, soon phone data, so the way we use Wi-Fi, goes off too, because the phone antenna down the road relies on electricity, right? So, you know, so a lot of those things we have, it's just the consistency of them is not what you would be used to in the United States or somewhere else, I think.
And what do you think about what are things that are, I would say, maybe early on when you were there, surprisingly hard, in that they were unexpected, that this thing, which doesn't seem like a big deal at first, and yet over the years, that is it's a truly hard thing, and it's just something you have to deal with. Do you have any examples of those?
Yeah, I think initially, obviously, learning a language, I think as you go through missions training and stuff, you go through these language acquisition courses, and sometimes you wrongly get the mindset. You're like, wow, that's something I'll knock out in the first year or something, and then I'll be good to go. And then as time goes along, you realize it's really difficult. And I've become fairly fluent in Khmer, but it's certainly not like speaking in your own native language. And I think initially that becomes frustrating because I think as Americans, we like things that happen quickly, and we want to get that done and move on. And you realize that it's a much longer process. I think initially, related to language learning, one of the things that I missed the most was just being able to have deep and substantial and spiritual conversations with people that you were just doing good to say hi and ask them where they were from and how old they are, and that sort of thing. Let alone go much deeper than that. So I think initially that was very, very challenging. Thankfully, I can do that much better now. I think
Right.
for me, the best group of people that I can do that with are the students that have kind of grown up with me teaching them English. So we have a special relationship, some of them for 8+ years now. So because we know each other so well, they're used to hearing me speak Khmer, and they're not intimidated by an American, and those sorts of things. So that's been special, especially a group of young guys who, some are in high school and some are in college, and some started graduating college.
That's great.
Hey, yeah, and that's interesting when you talk about that, because what you're describing is something I just said to a friend of mine the other night. I miss having deep, personal, face-to-face conversations. It's been a month. That's not, in the grand scheme of things, for me, a huge deal. How's that been for you over these last 8 years? I mean, you've got a beautiful wife, wonderful family, and so that is relationally fulfilling and satisfying, no doubt. But just those friendship type conversations, what's that been like for 8 years? How have you dealt with it? How have you leaned into Christ in that? And yeah.
Yeah, I think, it has been more challenging at sometimes, and sometimes you feel like it's, what we have here on the field and stuff has been enough and great, I guess. The way it's looked at. So when I came in 2009, we have our team. So initially, you're mainly relying on your teammates for that. Of course, you don't know them that well yet, so you kind of miss that familiarity of people that you know really well. So that takes an adjustment. You're trying to not only adjust to a foreign culture, but you're adjusting to your teammates and trying to get to know them. And people come and go. Right now, we have 3 other family units on the team. Mark and Tim and Paul and their families. So we have a good relationship together. So some of that, God blesses you with teammates, I guess, if that makes sense. So we have a guys group that meets every month or every other month. So that's the other guys on our Cambodian field team. So right now it's been great, and at other times it's been great. And then at other times people come and go, and, you have to regroup and go through all of that. I would say one thing that's certainly been true on the mission field, not just here, but about anywhere, it's that the turnover rate is probably about twice of what you would experience, say, at your typical church in America or something, as far as people coming and going. So, that can be challenging with people coming and going anywhere, but the rate that it happens here is much quicker. I think for myself, in the last several years, one of the blessings has been, as some of these young men some of them were like in 6th grade when I first started teaching them English. One young man that I'm thinking of, he's in his 4th year of college now. And the time that we're able to spend together, we often play basketball together or work together, and then spend time talking and fellowshipping. So as they've been able to grow up and then also spiritually mature, the level of conversations and friendship and camaraderie that we're able to have is at a much different level than I was able to experience in the first few years here, for sure. So that's been a big blessing, to feel like that it's reciprocal and they're able to encourage and bless me as well, instead of it just feeling in the early years, I think, like, you're pouring into them mainly.
Man, Luke, what's really cool about that to me is just it speaks to the longevity and the shepherding heart that you have, and just the it does take a long time when you're ministering to youth. I mean, I was a youth pastor for a lot of years, and those kids are growing up and adults, and we're learning how to relate to each other and stuff. But seeing the fruit of that is really cool, and it speaks to your longevity there. And I think it helpfully says something to pastors about, and all of us, about like investments that we make in relationships over time. So thanks for sharing that.
Yeah, if I could just add more kind of, I sometimes, as people ask me about it, and something I've come to kind of reflect upon, is I say that I tell people, I think that I had to grow up with them, and the blessing of kind of starting with kind of some young people, like the young boy in 6th grade who's now in his 4th year of college, and several others, is I feel like I kind of grew up with them. I had to grow in patience and my ability to love and be gentle and all of those sorts of things, as I'm sure, and we're all parents here talking, as I'm sure that all of you can relate to. And Jay, as you've been a parent to teenagers, I'm sure you can relate to. So I felt like I had to mature by God's grace in a lot of areas to be able to continue to shepherd them and pour into them over the years, if that makes sense. So God has certainly used them to sharpen and mature me, and I certainly have a long ways to go as well during those years.
Yeah, that's great. And I'd echo what Alex was saying in terms of the other, and I'll put a particular word on it, that there's a I don't know if it's phases, it might be more gradual than that, but what you're really saying is that you're in a very tangible way, just at the level of relationship, enjoying good fruits from your own ministry, which is a real blessing. Like that you've sort of been working with these kids, and as you said early on, you were trying to pour yourself into them, and yet in a sense, even though you're still thinking about a field and you're sowing seeds and you're trying to see the harvest. In a sense, some of that fruit is already coming back to bless you. That's neat to hear.
Yeah, praise God for that. It's been a huge blessing to be able to see some of that for sure.
Yeah. Alex, I've covered all my questions, so I don't want to end the conversation. I just wanted to let you know you don't need to give me room to ask more questions. I'm enjoying the conversation. We can keep going while it makes sense.
Yeah. So, Luke, I think a helpful thing, folks are praying for you, and I know for sure that there are many people at our church that do that consistently. And hopefully after watching this, there will be more that do that consistently. What are some ways that New St. Peter's folks particularly can pray for you, whether it's in this COVID-19 thing or just in 2020? What are some things we can jot down and pray for you guys about?
Thank you. Yeah, and thanks to all of you who are praying for us. Please continue. We certainly need your prayers. I think for us, I'm sure like a lot of you, especially the initial first few weeks of this, it was very stressful and very draining. Every day, there was a new restriction being put in place, and just lots of sweeping changes, and just to try to wrap our mind around that and try to deal with all those was stressful and very exhausting, to be honest with you. And I still think we still feel a bit that way. Obviously dealing with the uncertainty of it and questions of, when will we be able to start to kind of proceed back to normal. All of those still sort of things still linger in our minds. I think for us, just pray for wisdom in how to minister here. We've thought, at times we wanted to go the one extreme and, kind of completely quarantine and then you have the other extreme. So, we've kind of tried to stay in the middle. So just pray for wisdom and guidance that we're doing the right thing in those regards. I have been very encouraged with the youth that we're meeting with. Their lives are very busy often, even here in Cambodia. A typical 12th grader often will study 12 hours a day preparing for their national exam. But during this time, they have a lot more time to sit, a lot more time to be rested. So I feel like the times that we've met together, it has been much more fruitful. No one is busy. They're much more ready to meditate on God's word and think about eternal things. And I think, start to learn some of the lessons of the uncertainties of life and that sort of thing at a young age. So we're grateful for that and continue to pray for them during this time as well. Some other things we're starting to work in. One of our other teammates, Tim Lim, he's working on a new members curriculum that the churches that we work with here in Cambodia can use. So Soka and I are starting to translate that during this time. Pray for those sorts of things. I think the other Cambodian churches that we work with, they've all had an adjustment trying to use technology and all of those sort of things, which can have its hangups anywhere. But with power outages and slow internet here, it can make things that much more challenging.
And then do you have, you mentioned a gentleman who's not able to come to the field yet, who you were expecting by now due to the restrictions.
That's right. That's right.
And you've also mentioned that there's more turnover than one might expect at a normal church. Do you have any prayer requests regarding the team that you work with as a whole in terms of its composition and what your mission is and how you guys are doing that work? Past COVID-19. So let's assume we get to some new normal and the team is now able to add that person and you guys are doing your work. What are the prayer requests there?
Yeah, so John Lee is his name. He's the one who has raised support and is ready to come to the field, just waiting for restrictions to be removed and COVID-19 to ease up before he's able to come. So you can pray for him, his transition to the field. He was an intern on our field about 2 years ago now and spent some time with us in the village. Also spent some time with ministries in the city. So you can pray as he comes. We don't know exactly when, but maybe in month or a couple months, something like that. So pray for him as he learns Khmer and adjusts to ministry here. And then also pray for us. It'll be the first time that we have somebody long-term working with us here in the village. We've had lots of interns and such. Our teammates in the city, we have Mark and Laura Ambrose. Mark is a medical doctor, so he's still practicing during this time. So you can pray for them. He's also co-team leader. And then Paul and Susan Lee and their family. So Paul is our team leader. He's also the regional leader for Southeast Asia, mainly focused on theological education. And then Tim and Moonsuk and his family. So Tim is mainly focused on theological education. So that's our main team right now. We also have another couple, Becca and Brennan. They were both interns with us in the village a few years ago and actually ended up getting married. And they have one child and expecting another, and they're actually support raising during this time. So you can pray for them. Support raising is a bit more challenging right now because they can't travel around like what you would normally do during support raising. So they're at 40% right now. They would most likely come in January of 2021 if they're able to finish support raising on time.
And I may have missed it. Are they coming to the village or are they going to the city? The new couple.
They were interns with us. Yeah, thank you. They were interns with us in the village, but when they come long term, they'll be staying in the city.
Gotcha.
And I would just add to that an observation that maybe like for Jay's sons, that it sounds like Cambodia is the place to go and find a wife, right? Like these interns are just.
Oh man!
I'm just saying.
They would be very popular here today.
I think they would be. Hey, Luke, tell me briefly about this virtual mission trip that's happening with MTW and Cambodia team.
Yeah, so the regional hub, they were actually planning an actual missions trip that would have happened this June, mainly would have been focused on juniors and seniors in high school who have a strong interest in missions and possibly doing a summer internship in the future. So it would have been kind of a beginning step before you would do a summer internship, either here in Cambodia or somewhere else that Mission to the World offers summer internship opportunities. So obviously, as things have changed because of COVID-19, that was not able to happen. So they came up with the idea to do a virtual missions trip. So basically, I think it will be from 8 p.m. to 9:30 p.m. your time from a Monday through a Friday. I think it's starting June 8th, if I remember correctly. And basically, they'll spend an hour with the different members of our team. And each team member or team family will talk about what they do here in Cambodia, kind of their story, how they got called to missions, how they ended up here in Cambodia, what life on the mission field looks like for them, and things that teenagers could be thinking if they're interested in missions. So that will be for the first hour of it, and then the last 30 minutes of it, Jared Gibson and Martha, they will kind of do a debrief and take them through a biblical missions curriculum to help them think more biblical about missions. So yeah, my wife and I will be part of that as well, and then all of our team here in Cambodia will be part of that as well. So yeah, it's a great way, especially if you're a high schooler interested in missions, to kind of be able to meet the people here and see what's going on. And then in the future, if you actually want to come here on an actual missions trip or as an intern, it's a great way to get more information and learn a whole lot more about missions, I think.
Yeah, I heard about it and it sounds really cool, and I'm thankful. It seems like the Cambodia team is involved in a lot of receiving interns and sending folks. Like you'll talk to missionaries in other countries that were like one time in Cambodia with you or something, and it's cool. I appreciate that work too, because it's sort of this global perspective on you're here in the village and your teammates are there in the city, and yet you've got like your fingers in countries all over the world from these interns and short-term folks and stuff like that. So that's very cool. Luke, I'm going to kind kind of wrap this up by encouraging our folks at New St. Peter's to pray for you after they watch this. So I won't do that now. I'll just let them do that in their homes as they are able, and trust that they'll do that. Thank you. I mean, it's so good to see you and see your family and hear about what life is like, and really a blessing for us. And we hope that things will return to normal soon-ish, and that would include maybe some checkups like this that we can see you, hear from you, and say hi.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
that
think
would
we
be great.
mentioned it earlier, but it's like certain things that we're doing right now because of COVID. Some of them are essentially fasting from the things we actually want, like gathering together for worship as a congregation.
Yeah.
And we want to drop Zoom so fast and so quickly for worship. Okay. But on the flip side, we're doing some other things where it's like, well, why does this have anything to do with COVID-19? Why aren't we just simply doing this to check in with our missionaries, right? So hold our feet to the fire on that one, Luke. That's something we should be doing. It's great to do, and we want to keep doing it.
Thank you. Yeah, I think this is a great idea. I appreciate you guys setting it up.
Yeah.
All right,
well,
brother.
Thank you so much, and say hi to your kids again for us and thank them. It was great to see them. It was great to get to see them in person a couple years ago, but it's great to see the different people they are now. Like, so much growth at that age. So it's neat to get to just do a little check-in every once in a while.
Yeah. Thanks, Jay. Yeah.
All right.
Tell your family hi, Alex, as well. Yeah.
All right.
Absolutely. All right. Bye-bye, Luke. Bye, Soka.
All right. Bye. Thank you. Bye.